Financial observers say when it comes to buying big-ticket items such as a house or a car, we have been conditioned to believe that having a great credit score is the most important aspect of getting finance for such purchases. According to founder of piggybanker.com, Dineo Tsamela, too often though, people forget the importance of having sufficient savings to cover the deposit and other upfront costs. If you're planning to buy a house or a car, what could be the most important aspect of this transaction? In which ways could one adjust their lifestyle to better accommodate this new monthly commitment? And what other extra costs should one start saving for? If you're planning to buy a house, what provisions should one provide for? What are the other related costs? And what could be the many upfront costs that one should not lose sight of? To answer all these questions is well-known financial advisor and author Nelson Letshwene. Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. First of all, it is well understood that the burden of big purchases can be reduced if somebody has done their homework. Can you unpack this homework for us, beginning with the purchase of a big car, or a car, not necessarily a big one? How would somebody go about doing their homework for such a purchase and reducing the burden?
I think the homework that you have to do, other than checking the kind of car that you want, the financial homework that you have to do when you're doing a big purchase, like a car, for example, you have to figure out something that we call the total cost of ownership. Now, total cost of ownership is the idea that not only can I afford the installments towards the car, but I can also afford the running costs of the car as well as the ownership of the car. I mean, it's not just petrol and servicing the car, but owning the car itself has other costs, such as, where do you keep the car, where do you park the car, the security, the insurances, and all of those things. So that's something that we call the total cost of ownership. Anytime you do a big purchase, you have to think about those words, total cost of ownership.
How can somebody streamline his or her spending to better accommodate this new financial commitment?
When you take a big purchase, you have to think about it like that, in terms of it's a big thing which is going to straddle over many years. But if you think of it in terms of just monthly, that I can afford it this month, you're going to shortchange yourself because life changes as you go. So it's a 3 or 4 or 5 year commitment in terms of a car. It's a 20-year commitment in terms of a house or other properties in between. So every time you take those, you need to start thinking when you talk about your money goals in those terms, not just monthly. So, but obviously you have to function from the month, from today. So you need to be able to say, okay, I can afford it this month, but I can afford it still. 12 months from now, I can afford it still. 18 months from now, I can still afford it. So you streamline your life in such a way that the money that is going to this particular asset is not going to be available for any other thing, but the money that remains once this money is removed is enough for you to live on. Because if it's not enough, that's when you're going to start crouching onto the wrong side of your money, which is taking other people's money or debt.
Back to the purchase of a car, you mentioned the total cost of ownership. Could you break down what particular extra costs could arise?
It's easy to go to a lender and say, here is my pay slip, and they look only at your pay slip and say you qualify for the car. But your pay slip doesn't tell them your rental, doesn't tell them your food or your other social responsibilities that you have. That is up to you to make sure that, look, don't just look at my pay slip and say, I qualify for this. Here's basically what's available for me to be able to buy a car. And so when we think about an asset like a car, you have to remember that cars are priced from 10,000 to 1 million. Somewhere in between there, you can find something that fits you. You don't have to go to the end, to the million side. and you don't have to go to the 10,000 side. But you have to be able to make your budget in such a way that I fit in the 100,000 or the 200,000 or maybe the 50,000. That is what I can afford. And I always tell people, especially when we talk about cars, that look, you can buy a bridge car. The car you buy now may not be your dream car, but it's a bridge between now and the dream car. But do not overcommit yourself to the point where you just want to go to the dream car right now, even if you can't afford it.
Just out of curiosity and a little off script, I'd like to know if you, as a financial advisor and somebody who's more savvy on these matters, have ever found it financially smart or financially efficient to buy a car fresh off the lot?
It's preferences, I mean, look, sometimes, it depends who's paying for the car. If I'm paying out of my own pocket, then it has never made sense for me to get a fresh new one off the lot, okay? Maybe I don't make enough money. But companies that are buying company cars want them fresh off the lot. So sometimes you see your neighbor driving a car that has been bought by their company fresh off the lot, and you think, hey, I want to do that. You have to make sure that you always look at yourself and say, what can I afford? There are good, previously loved cars, as they call them these days, that you can go and get and can still do as good a job as a brand new one. So it's basically from person to person, but it's up to you what you can afford. Never leave out the affordability issue out of it.
It is now time for a quick break. When we return, we continue our discussion on how to reduce the financial burden of major purchases, such as your car or your home.
To get more from life, we need all the help we can get, like getting a 105% home loan to cover costs like legal fees and deposits. And 55 days interest-free credit when swiping your credit card. And paying 0% deposit to drive the car you want. And helping save for those big things for your family. And earning real rewards for just doing your everyday banking. Isn't it time you got more from life with gold? Switch to FNB today. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues, as we continue our conversation with financial advisor and author Nelson Letshwene about the ways in which we can best plan for major purchases. When it comes to buying a house, what provisions should I be making there? Which types of costs of home ownership do people typically overlook?
Owning a house is a different ball game altogether because it is a 20-year commitment generally. 20, 25, sometimes even 30. In that 20 years, your children will be born, they will grow up, they will go to school, and you need to be able to know that, yes, I will be paying this mortgage, but I will also be raising children. I will also be buying, in that 20-year period, you're probably going to buy 2 or 3 cars, all of that. So you need to be able to think about all of that. This is a thing that will stay with me for most of my waking life, all right? And life needs to be able to go on. So your children must be able to go to school, and your life must be able to go on in any other way that you want to. So it's total cost of ownership of a house is not just the mortgage that you're going to pay. It is the insurance on the house. It is the maintenance of the house over time. Things are gonna break. Nothing is forever. The geyser may break after 5 years. After all, they only give you the 5-year guarantee. So after that, you might have to replace. So over time, you're gonna have to make sure that you have money to maintain and to keep it going, even as you continue with the rest of your life and you have that commitment.
What of buying a house? What are your thoughts on buying versus building? Which one has made more financial sense to you in this day and age?
It's two things. It's individual based and it's market based. There's a time when the prices for buying houses are lower than the prices of building a house. So you need to be able to know where's the market at right now. And it depends where you are at, obviously, in terms of your finances and which part of the country you're wanting to buy or to build. So you need to be able to make a full assessment. It is not always true that it is cheaper to build. And it is not always true that it is cheaper to buy a fully fledged house. Now, some developers will tell you if you build, you'll build cheap, and then upon finishing, you immediately have equity in the house. It is worth a whole lot more. That may or may not be true, depending where you build that house. So, homework, you talked about homework in the beginning. It's part of that you need to be able to do, okay? So if you are obviously, afraid of loans and long-term commitments, some people think, let me just build because I don't want to be in a loan, situation, stuff like that. So it's person to person, household to household, financial situation to financial situation. But whatever you do, get great advice and do what is appropriate for you.
We are told that the quicker you pay off a loan, the cheaper that big purchase can become. How can somebody get around to paying it off faster and making their interest less?
Okay, the way to pay it faster is obviously to increase your installments. But before you do that installment increment, make sure that other areas of your life are not suffering as a result of you increasing your installment towards your home loan. But if you are able to do that, a 10% increase just in your installments could, obviously depending what interest rate you are at and what period you have, you could save as much as 7 years or even more of the time that it's going to take you to repay the loan. So yes, it does help to pay it faster, but it depends on your financial situation. As long as paying it faster doesn't jeopardize other areas of your financial life.
There are always competing costs that arise month to month that challenge someone's budget. How can somebody ensure that they stay committed and focused and pay off their monthly repayments?
The fastest way to do that is obviously to automate it, either through a debit order or a stop order, so it comes out and it is no longer available to you. So the best way when you do your long-term planning or your other competing needs, you know that money is not available for anything else. So when you budget, your monthly budgets or whatever, you are budgeting only on that which is available and your disposable income. So the best way is obviously to automate it, commit to it over long term, and just keep doing it.
Have you ever wondered whether you're paying more or less than you could be with regards to your car and home? Nelson tells us what proportion of our income should ideally be dedicated to such expenses.
It's always a good idea not to have 50% of your salary going towards debt, mortgage included, okay? Because you see, most people, if you take your salary, there's a lot more demand on it, on things for today, school fees, food, and other things. So if your mortgage is taking, say, 20-25%, maybe 30%, then your car gives you another 10-15% towards paying that loan, as long as you don't have other, because we always take a little personal loan here or there or whatever. But your loan repayment, the ratio of your loan of your salary that goes towards loans, it's ideally shouldn't be more than 50%. If it is, make sure that your current life right now doesn't suffer as a result of that. So if you earn a lot of money, perhaps 50% of your money going towards loans, it's nothing because so much more still remains behind. But generally, people keep up or live their life according to what they earn. So if you are at 50% or more, chances are you might start suffering a little bit. So it's very important to watch that ratio to make sure that the ratio of the amount of money going towards debt doesn't exceed that. But it's from person to person. There's no rule of thumb that I can say everybody should be on that. But it's a good idea to be below, 50% or below. It helps because then it gives you room to save money even for the future.
To get more from life, we need all the help we can get, like getting a 105% home loan to cover costs like legal fees and deposits. And 55 days interest-free credit when swiping your credit card. And paying 0% deposit to drive the car you want. And helping save for those big things for your family. And earning real rewards for just doing your everyday banking. Isn't it time you got more from life with gold? Switch to FNB today. FNB, how can we help you?
Last week, the CEO of Fairground Holdings, Myra Sokororwane, detailed what it takes to stage the biggest expo in Botswana. She spoke of over a year's worth of preparation, the engagement of stakeholders ranging from the Botswana Police Service to micro-entrepreneurs, and consultations throughout. She also spoke of the ways in which they aim to improve their service offering year after year and the changes this has resulted in. But how has the planning and preparation for crowds that could exceed the show's record of 60,000 people come together? Logistics that have had to factor in that old and young alike are to throng amidst daredevil rides, confectionaries, technological displays, and other spectacles throughout this entire week. How have exhibitors from 12 countries or so been accommodated? We checked in again on Fairground Holdings yesterday to see the culmination of all these preparations at the official opening of the 2017 Botswana Consumer Fair. Here is a taste of how the official opening progressed.
The fair's current tagline of "It's more than just shopping" is very appropriate, as it highlights its coverage of, amongst others, what products and services are available, by whom and where, information dissemination, regulations, support services, protection services, legal framework, and new innovations in the market. I highlight those, amongst others, as those that are very conducive to showing investors and tourists alike the importance of services that Botswana as a country have to offer, both towards businesses as well as towards travelers.
The Botswana Consumer Fair has, since its inception in 2006, I believe, proved to be a valuable interactive forum for both local and foreign investors. And it has allowed both manufacturers, wholesalers, and traders to market their products directly to the consumers. It has also been an ideal platform to promote the small and medium enterprises whose success is critical to economic growth, diversification, and job creation in the country. I'm told is also an area, of course, last year I witnessed the education that it provides. It's a place where we get educated on the wealth that is Botswana. I recall seeing the diamonds being exhibited in the last exhibition, and indeed it was a useful forum to see that. That's the wealth of Botswana.
To get a comprehensive feel of day one of the Botswana Consumer Fair, we also spoke to a number of exhibitors that were present as the week's events got underway, asking them what they are mainly looking to achieve through their participation in this event.
Botswana Building Society is just looking at educating the public about our products and services. We have three main products, being mortgages, investments, and savings. We're just basically going to elucidate on these products because we figured there's a lot of education that is necessary, especially pertaining to property. We just want people to come and know that they can build and they can buy houses with Botswana Building Society. We're looking at attaining a young audience actually in this trade fair. We figured that they are struggling to attain property.
The main objective of exhibiting here is to get people to know more about Bokodol and its offerings. We want Botswana to be aware that open and distance learning is the way to go going forward in this country, because it's not sustainable to expect the government to be building more schools, more institutions, when people can study from home, people can study from their offices, people can study from wherever they are without having to leave their jobs, without having to leave whatever they would be doing to go and study. It is much, much cheaper to study using ODL than any other method. Bokodol is there to bridge the education gap.
BOCRA is here to disseminate information on the functions of BOCRA. We are here to reach out to the public on consumer issues, especially their rights and obligations as consumers of the ICT industry. We are here to share information with the general public on any regulatory issues that they would like to know about. Because there are new people who come every year, so we have to be prepared to share information with the new people, and even the technology changes. As technology changes, it means that you have to share information with the public.
Our main focus is to give a good time to the people of Botswana and Gaborone. I'm sure there's all around people from Botswana coming to Gaborone for the trade fair. So we want to give a service to the people of Botswana because they accommodate us well. So yeah, and of course make some money as well while we are here. So yeah, it's my 4th annual year that I'm attending the Consumer Fair. So and I hope to come here for 40 more.
If today was anything to go by, then the organizers of this event would not be wrong in expecting to exceed their targets. With that, however, it is a good night from me, Nameto Samakula, and the team.